Well, hello,
Hello.
hello.
Hello, gentlemen. Jarno and Kay. How are we both this morning?
Very well, thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing well. Excited to talk to you again, you two again. Well, first of all, we were just joking before, but I'm very curious. I was commenting. I think you two have a great vibe. I think you're clearly very playful. I saw the video from London Fashion Week, which has a pretty playful kind of character to it. I'm wondering, how did you two come to work together, find each other in this wild world?
Ooh. So, thank you for that question. Do you want to hear the the imaginative, beautiful version, or the rough version? We can offer two.
Let me take the imaginative version and then the harsh reality after.
Okay. Imagine beautiful sunset somewhere in Bahamas. Me
I
walking
see
with
more.
my vodka martini, which I absolutely love, and then I see this handsome, kind of like Baywatch type of person running along,
Slowly.
With an amazing body.
and magical things happened.
Okay.
So the real version is Grinder.
The contemporary way to meet people, to meet creatives now.
Dating apps,
That's so funny. I've been reading about y'all for some time now, and I read the No Asians Please and the piece that was inspired. So was your connection on Grindr somehow also related to this No Asian? Clearly there had to be some Asians for y'all to get together, but like, is that part of the story too? The whole no Asian please?
Oh, from my behalf, no. But I'll let you.
Of the story, like that was my my graduate project at the Royal College of Art. That was like basically what I researched about, like the No Asians Please filter in the Grindr, which is like the whole thing, a whole beginning of my journey towards the fashion industry, basically.
So y'all Grindr quite a bit then. It connected you two and it started your journey into fashion.
Oh, Grinder, amazing thing.
Yeah, and it always be our inspiration and things for our projects anyway. Yeah, it's the subcultures, you know what I mean?
I think it used to be Nokia, which is, by the way, Finnish company. I think their tagline used to be Nokia connecting people. But I think nowadays it should be Grindr connecting people. So, and by the way, we are not sponsored by Grindr.
yeah, nothing of this is sponsored by Grindr.
No.
We'll just take tips afterwards. We'll set up a little Bitcoin address. No problem, Grindr, if you're listening. Okay, cool. And then can I ask you two, now that you have a brand, now that you have kind of a presence in the scene, what does the creative process look like? How do you like to work together? Where do you think you're going with the brand? Like what's the world going to look like for Kawa K in a few years, a few months, a few decades?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Creative process. I come kind of like you as well. Quite mixed background. I've got tiny bit of academic background and then artistic. So I'm kind of like a mixed bag. So and he is purely from knit and fashion background. So from that point of view, I guess kind of like our creative starting point is slightly different than many other designer duos. Obviously, I bring my own point of views, and yeah.
I think we'll believe in there's always more. Like one of our core values of the brand is like, I mean, we think beyond clothes. We think our brand is more than clothes. Like we think of stories. There's always more substance towards what we do. For examples, we do loads of performance, themes, visuals to support our brand, and also at the same time, we think beyond web design, like about sustainabilities and things like that. So yeah.
Excellent, cool.
And how about you yourself?
Yeah, how did I come to masquerade in this world of fashion? It's a very interesting question. I'll tell you two a secret. I don't know shit all about fashion. I'm a chemist. Um, I worked in the energy sector for a long time, so this is pretty new for me. I actually came to where I work for natural fiber welding and Miram from more of the pursuit of kind of environmental stewardship. I was always kind of in the outdoors, hugging trees. I actually kind of fundamentally believe Mother Nature gives us most of our, if not all of our inspiration for beauty.
Mhm.
And so then to see so much of that inspiration destroyed kind of willy-nilly, I think is a real crying shame, and will basically leave humanity with a big hole in the future if that's not corrected. So that kind of took me to energy, did clean energy for a while, and then made my way into textiles. And really, I think it's such a fascinating and amazing place to work because it's so. I'm sure you two appreciate this too. It's so tactile. You know, you get to really see. It's such a reward to like when we make something, when we have our like Miram sheets. You can touch it, you can fold it, you can break it. You know, you can cut it. It's
Oh,
so yeah, exactly. and and it's just not the case in other industries, you know? Like if I were to ask you two to go touch some renewable energy, what would you do? You'd probably turn on your lights if you're lucky, but it just lacks that real personal, that satisfaction of touch that I couldn't be happier actually in materials and in this kind of sustainable fashion space because it's so I think there's so many cool things and cool people, you two included. Yeah.
and I would say that I love these sort of stories, like things just happen, like
Mm.
like yourself. I love these sort of things, and I do think that like our one of our things is also kind of like mix these kind of like happy accidents and
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
kind of like not inconvenient, but kind of like mixture of different forms of arts
Mm.
and
Yeah.
even science and people. How what we believe that none of these things they would not exist without others.
Yeah.
Of course.
Fashion wouldn't exist without music and film and theater and
Mm.
Scientists.
yeah. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like a
chemists.
nice kind of like a ball of things.
Mm-mm-mm. I agree completely, and I also agree that it's it's nice when you have the ability to kind of lean into that chance when you don't push back, you kind of just roll with up. Now I find myself working in textiles and living in Europe, and okay, like let's just see where this little train takes us, and hopefully it's not a train wreck, which it won't be, and it'll be a hell of a fun ride along the way. So yeah, I think there's so much beauty in these kind of chance encounters and I in my life I certainly wouldn't want to push back against that. But I have a question about this the the touch and the texture because
Mm.
I think I've seen a number one of a lot of your pieces online from the brand, and maybe you have some behind you. I think texture plays a particularly important role for your garments and your pieces.
Mm.
Um, and I'm very curious, do you come to that design process with a texture in mind, or do you look for these materials and then the manufacturing methods to kind of have that texture emerge from the process, if that makes sense as a question?
So how how we usually start, we have,
Mm.
of course, we have an idea, and then we work our materials quite a lot as well. We've got
Mm.
our signature ways how we treat materials, and we do a lot of experimenting.
Mm.
So
Mm,
that's how we come up quite often with our textures. It's kind of
Yeah.
like there's when we do these experiments, there some certain elements they have to be there. You
Mm.
can't do all the things what we do with all the fabrics in the world.
oh,
So there's always that kind of like starting point, and something comes out of that.
Yeah, I would say both. Like it can be both from like we design a texture that we want at first, and then actually by accidents or by experimentation, oh, actually that's an interesting texture to cooperate with that story as well. And actually, yeah. So I think both ways that we will.
Yeah, there was a few seasons back. We got inspired by a broken sofa. I think I was in Barclays, local bank here in the UK, and I was waiting for my turn. And as you know, sometimes it takes ages to get to talk to the people who work for the bank.
Thanks to their service.
Yeah, well, great bank, you know. Barclays, please don't drop me off your, you know.
Yeah, we're not sponsored by Barclays either. That's for sure.
No, but they had this sofa, and it was kind of like the feeling was coming out. So it was literally broken. The fabric was broken, and it looked really beautiful, even though it was broken. So kind of like silly things like this, you know. And then we started experimenting fabrics and yeah, to try to kind of like get that sort of effect.
Yeah.
And so, do I understand it then? You two, both of you, or your team, make every garment yourselves or amongst the team?
I would say we trade fabrics ourselves quite often, and for making, we make some of them, and then we have some local crafters, and also we have the production units to back us up on the production side as well. Yeah,
but we do a lot ourselves.
Yeah,
that's kind of like one of the kind of like core of Kawaki. Lots of handcrafted things, and
yeah,
we use our hands a lot.
Yeah,
our studio is a mess most of the time because there's so much.
And then is that mostly like knits, or where do you think you're at today in terms of a specialty, and where do you want to go?
I would say like knit and woven materials. Obviously, we're open to options, but because I'm from knitwear background, so obviously my direct instinct will be like knitwear will be great because at the same time I think it's quite versatile as well. But at the same time, we're super open-minded because I don't think we need to restrict ourselves to just one category. Any materials that can express the essence of Kawaki, that can explain the stories that we have in our mind, I think those are the great materials to work with.
Okay, nice. I was just mentioning this because while you were just showing, and I have some of the mirror in here, it's obviously a sheet, right? You can make it into handbag, shoes. We've talked about a leather jacket here when the seasons more permit it, but we also have a separate technology at Natural Fiber Welding that's a yarn technology. And what we do with this yarn technology is, for example, some designers and brands come to us and they say we would love to use recycled cotton, but certain yarns with recycled content are very weak, or they'll peel, or that you can't use them in certain knitwear machines because it's just too weak of a fiber. And we'll add some strength to that. We'll add some durability, essentially revitalize it so you can use it over and over again as a recycled fiber. And it's just so interesting that I should have keyed in on the knitwear stuff because I would have loved to get you some of our yarns and see how you like them, because maybe we could do that in the future, because we have quite a unique, I'm going to say, structure. So how the actual yarn feels and looks, and if you were to zoom in on it with a microscope, it would look very different than most cotton. And most brands, when they think of cotton or natural fabrics, they're thinking of buttery, soft, fluffy, normal cotton. But ours is it has more structure, it has more body to it. And I would be so curious with your design talents, what you could do with some of those yarns. So I've taken a note to get you some cones of our what we call welded cotton. It's a terrible name for the fashion industry, but it's a great scientific name.
Sounds good. Sounds really good and interesting. Very interesting to see and know more about that. And one beauty of knitting, because we can create our own fabrics here.
Yeah.
using different yarns, and it's really handy way of doing something kind of like entirely of your own.
It's a really versatile craft as well. That I mean, you can basically incorporate anything which is in a yarn form to make it as a knitted fabric and make it as clothes. So I think,
we actually got a question, and this is for you, Greg. What is the difference between animal leather and Mirum?
Ooh, that's a great question. First and foremost, Mirum. I actually have a little example. So maybe our viewers can't see this very well, but this here is a chunk of rubber, of latex from the rubber tree. And so essentially, this is the backbone of Mirum, which is to say Mirum is entirely plant-based. It has no animal products in it. You could call it a vegan leather. We call it just a plant-based leather. But in many other ways, and hopefully as you two get more familiar with the material, you can give me feedback on this. But in many ways, we don't want it to be too different from leather, right? We want it to sew like leather. We want it to have durability like leather. We want it to have that same texture, that same life, that same bounce as leather. So while we would and are all about using plants and using more plants to basically displace plastic, kind of plastic is our enemy. We don't, as a brand, we don't necessarily view leather as the enemy. There's some processing problems with leather, some tanneries, and of course the enormous industrial meat industry isn't exactly kind to the planet, but we think plastics are even worse to the planet. So what Mirum is all about is plants, not plastic. We're all about making a leather-like good that can be used in the leather industry, so to speak, but do so without animal products, without plastic products, with 100% plants. So hopefully that answers that simple question. Simple, but maybe complex question.
Yes. Yeah. One more. What are the kind of like the main ingredients on top of? You mentioned like what Mirum can be made of.
Yeah.
Different textures, and
because the two I think you two have there, that kind of I think you have a very grippy texture. It almost feels like a little like a skin of sorts. That's actually from
Japanese paper, like really.
Yeah. That's so. Yeah. I'm so glad you recognize that texture, because we literally have a texture that we call in-house Japanese paper.
I love Japanese paper. That's how I do my video usually.
Yeah. And so the one you're holding there, Kay, is actually cork. That texture is from cork, and we don't use virgin cork. We don't use we use what's called the byproduct. So when they make the cork stopper for your wine bottle, they have to actually like shave that cylinder. And in shaving of the cylinder, there's some dust. They call it cork dust. So we buy that cork dust. You can see it here, and that's what gives this particular formulation that you're holding, Kay, that character, that really grippy character. It's also a bit stretchy from the rubber, but it doesn't have to be. We can at times use coconut fiber, so that's literally what you see hanging out on the shell of a coconut, and that will give it a very kind of firm, a very robust texture. Oftentimes brands would want that for like an outer material, like maybe on a backpack or something that's going to be very abrasive resistant, very strong. And so we just play around with different natural inputs. For us, we kind of take a creative process as well to our materials, and that process looks at what are some of the properties of these various plants we put in, and then how can we accentuate that property in the final product. And so I think the great example is the little coconut husk, because it's a very strong fiber. It's known to be extremely strong and abrasive resistance. And so we want to use this material. It also happens to be a waste material, and then get kind of the best character out of that fiber and have that come through on Mirum. And that's kind of how our creative process works as well. So another good example would be if we want a specific color, like I have a beautiful kind of orange here of mirum, like a burnt orange. And all these come from different pigments, which are essentially minerals. So it's not dyed. It might have, a set of mineral textures mineral inputs to give it a specific color. And so we just kind of play around with these various inputs that Mother Nature provides, and for us, that's actually a big part of our own material science process, our own creative processes. What's out there? What can we use? What has a killer story as well? Story is very important for us, and then we incorporate that into the materials as well.
Beautiful.
I think
beautiful.
That's amazing process behind it. Like,
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. This is kind of like I'm a tree hugger as well. Literally, I used to hug trees when I was younger, and this is beautiful. I love that. And if you want, I've got because of the COVID-19, I've got quite a few wine bottle corks there. I can sell them.
It's very interesting. So, Jarno, they will actually there's a I forget who our vendor is, but they will actually take back your old ones and then recycle them. And we plan to buy recycled cork in the future because it's more sustainable than virgin cork. So you keep on collecting your cork pile, and one day I'm going to come knocking, and I'll absolutely.
You really feel luggage just to take all of them out. Then you need an extra package.
It's and what I've heard and what I've understood, that cork is actually it's running out. With am I kind of like?
No, you're not incorrect. It's cork is it's a very unique material. When you get down to the actual science of cork, it's one of the, in terms of properties, it's one of the rarest and most special kind of wood materials in the world, and it only grows in that band of the Mediterranean. So you can't pick up a cork plantation and plant it in Asia or plant it in the U.S. And so that limits supply. But the cork industry actually has done very well over the past decade of making sustainable cork farms, more or less. So their supply is limited in the sense that it's such a special plant, it only grows in one place, but they've, as an industry, have made a lot of strides and a lot of headway in being essentially a sustainable product. And so most of all the cork we buy today is what's called forest certified FSC. As a Finn, Jarno, you should know a lot about this, taking care of forests. You Finns do this better than anybody. And so the cork industry actually has done very well. So it's actually one of our preferred materials because of this. It's not always the case, and there's certainly some bad actors, but for the majority, the industry is doing very well. I think it's one of the success stories actually on how you could sustainably produce and sustainably harvest a material that is so special. And so, yeah, while it is limited, we like it a lot.
Good to hear.
Well, gentlemen, I'll just say, is there anything that you would love to see in our materials going forward? Like, if you had wild dreams about sustainable materials, maybe we haven't even made it yet. Just, is there like a dream material for you two as you look out into your collections in your future that you haven't seen? And maybe I'll take it back to my scientists and see what we can cook up.
I mean, I pretty much think like your material is quite perfect. Honestly, it's amazing. We would love to use that straight away. But I mean, it would be great to have like more color options if it's possible. Then because I think designers, most of them, they have their own color board. They have their mood board for different seasons. So I think the flexibilities on different colors will be, like different color assortments will be very amazing for designers.
And Jarno?
Oh, I'm very interested in the yarns you mentioned, and I think you said that it's recycled, reconstructed cotton.
Yeah, recycled cotton. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm very interested in that one, and because everybody knows that world is full of we have too many clothes, and I quite like the idea of making the existing ones something new rather than producing new and new all the time. So I'm very much I love that idea, and I think the solution lies there rather than filling our landfills with textile.
More rubbish.
Yeah,
more
yeah,
new,
yeah.
More new clothes, more dead stock. Yeah. Okay, I think we can do this. Okay, I'll work on some colors. I'm looking over on my sample box, and I'm seeing some lilacs and some greens coming in. So I think you'll be impressed with what we have in the hopper. And then Jarno, I'll get you all some cones of our cotton, so you can sample, see what it's like. We have some 100% recycled yarns and things like this. So hopefully, well, I know once you see them, you'll be able to, get inspired and do something cool with it. So.
And the corks I have, they're mainly a red wine, so I think there might be slight red tint. One
okay.
very
so we might get a beautiful Bordeaux or a nice red Burgundy. I mean, maybe that'll be the next color we launch. So I will absolutely look forward to getting you two some more of our materials. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you over the last few months, and looking forward to see how the relationships and collaboration evolve. And certainly very grateful for the time spent today with you two.
Likewise.
Very
Thank you so
to
much.
talk with you, honestly.
Yeah, I look forward to more of it to come. So I wish you two a wonderful sunny weekend. Hopefully us here in Amsterdam as well. And we'll be in touch soon, yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ciao, Greg.
Yeah.